So I'm back for part 2 of the series that I started on amenorrhea a few weeks ago. I got a lot of emails and a lot of questions, and so I've kind of tried to organize them, and then we'll be answering them as best I can, and as quickly and efficiently as I can, so I can get to as many as I possibly can. So if you have other questions to follow up on the first part, which I'll post about, or I'll link to in this blog post, or if you have questions to follow up with on this post that I'm doing now, on this video post, then email me at robyncole, ROBYNCOALE @gmail.com. I'll do my best. I love answering these types of questions. I love Q&As. I love teaching. And so I'm happy to answer them the best I can, as long as it doesn't conflict with individual care. I'm not going to give advice if that's not appropriate for the general public. Just it's irresponsible on my part. So I'll do the best that I can. So we'll start with the first one. I had a reader email me that says, what are your thoughts on birth control to get a period? I had an eating disorder for a year, but I have now been at a healthy weight for a year and a half, and I'm on the pill to try to regulate my period. This is my answer to that. Getting a period while you're on birth control, if it's hormonal birth control, there's really only one non-hormonal, and that is Paragard, which is a copper IUD. So it's not even a pill. It's actually something that's inserted into your uterus. That is not a real period. And so if you are on birth control to try to regulate your period, you're not actually getting a natural cycle. Birth control has varying concentrations of estrogen and progesterone, or there's ones that don't have estrogen at all, they just have progesterone. So, progesterone. I was just pronouncing that wrong. So your birth control is going to have a different mixture of each of those. And so, depending on whatever your doctor prescribes, I would never go through all the different birth controls. And I'm an expert on every single type of birth control. So, depending on what your doctor prescribes, there's going to be different side effects. It works a little bit differently. Hormone concentrations are a little bit different. The point being, though, is that birth control is synthetic female hormone. It is not your body naturally producing those hormones that produce your cycle. And so you have something called a hypogonadal pituitary axis. I know that's a mouthful, but it's actually a natural cascade of events. And it's how a lot of hormones are released and then how they act on different glands in the body. And so when you have synthetic hormones coming from birth control, that's not actually a true period. So I know some people aren't totally familiar with birth control and how it works, but I know a lot of physicians out there want to, heal amenorrhea with birth control. That's not the answer. That does not heal amenorrhea. That is a Band-Aid, in my opinion. And there's a lot of amazing doctors out there, but I feel like this is an area where we're not really well educated, and I'm certainly not fully educated on it. But it is the most frustrating thing to me when I hear doctors slapping birth control on women who are clearly underweight, who aren't just taking the time. And I get it, the healthcare system works against us and how much time we as providers are allowed to see patients. But asking a few simple questions about food and exercise and stress are easy, quick screening tools we can use instead of slapping birth control. So I won't go down that rabbit hole, but all that to say is that, in my opinion, I don't recommend women just immediately go to birth control to get a period back. You're not going to develop osteoporosis in, several months by not taking birth control. I know some providers will say, well, we want you on it because your body's you don't have enough estrogen, so therefore your bones are become brittle. I totally get that. That's totally true. But you're not going to get osteoporosis in a few short months while you're trying to get your period back naturally. I would recommend you get the help of a dietitian or somebody else that is skilled in that can tell you how to eat and help you with your relationship with food in order to do what you need to do to get your period back naturally. But I do not recommend birth control. I've worked with many clients, some who have never had a period in their life, and they got a period back naturally. So it's totally possible, but you have to be willing to do the work for it, to change your lifestyle factors in order to get a period. So that's my thoughts on birth control and getting a cycle after, especially after coming out of a period of anorexia. The body goes through a ton of damage and stress when you've been anorexic and starving yourself. And so it takes a while for the body to trust you again, for you to be able to balance out your hormones, for stress hormones to go down, and for everything to kind of settle out. And for your body also to kind of restore its metabolic capacity and function at a place where not only is your metabolism functioning optimally, but that you're actually accepting and also reaching your body's natural set point. That is very different than a healthy BMI. Okay, so just because you're in the healthy range does not mean that's the place where your body's going to naturally menstruate. Okay, that was long-winded, and I get super fired up about that because I myself have been told, oh, just take birth control for years, and that's totally not the answer at all. Okay, so I'm also not saying that birth control is never medically indicated. There are cases of severe endometriosis and other things that I'm not going to go into a laundry list of things here where birth control might be medically indicated. I never want my word to be something that people think is applied to every single case, because I know I get comments or emails of like, well, in this certain case, I get that. There's always going to be these outlier cases. I'm talking about generally here. So I just always want to make that clear, because I never want to be so ignorant to think that what I say can be applied to everyone. That's absolutely not the case. I would be a fool to think that. All right, the next question is, can you speak to fertility later in life after a long period of amenorrhea? So, and she said pun intended, which is funny. So I will say this about infertility and amenorrhea. Just because you've been amenorrheic does not mean you're going to be infertile at all. There are other gynecological conditions that can decrease fertility. But I wouldn't say, and I would say the research, at least the research I've read, granted I would be a fool to tell you I've read every single research article there is on amenorrhea, but there has been anything super conclusive that said fertility rates decrease XYZ if you've been amenorrheic XYZ. Now I will say, if you have been amenorrheic for a while, it might take, the first month you have a period isn't going to mean that that's the most optimal month for you to conceive. And that's just some like anecdotal and theoretical conclusions on my part. But I will say, just because you've been amenorrheic doesn't mean that you're going to be infertile. And so I hope that that's encouraging. So email me more questions if you have more specifics on that. But to answer that kind of in a nutshell, that's I'm going to answer that one. Okay, next one is healing amenorrhea naturally after coming off birth control pills in order to conceive. And so this gal had just came off birth control. She's been off birth control for 2.5 months and still has not gotten her period back. And so I will answer this in a way that hopefully, and I know I've blogged about it a little bit and done some other things with how to heal amenorrhea, but I work with a ton of clients. That's like probably 70% of our clientele. If they don't come to us for amenorrhea, they end up having amenorrhea, and then we have to work with them on that. That Cody and I work with, majority of the clients we work with have amenorrhea. And so I never want to, give advice out over a YouTube video. That would be irresponsible for me to give detailed advice, because every client is different. But also at the same time, I want to be fair to people who are investing in nutshell services. So with that said, amenorrhea is a four-pronged approach as I explain it to people. So there are 4 main things that can affect your hypogonadal pituitary axis, and that is a super rhythmic pulse of hormones that are released to make your menstrual cycle happen. And so the 4 areas are nutrition, obviously, sleep, stress, and exercise. And I think I've posted about this just a couple weeks ago, but the 2 main things that I always hone in on, nutrition is always important, but 2 things that I think overlooked a lot are stress and sleep. Because sometimes even if you're eating well, I've worked with clients where the eating looks pretty good, exercise is appropriate, and it's really stress that's preventing their cycle from happening. So then we're working on self-care and all those other sorts of things to keep stress down. But it's mainly those 4 things that I focus on with people. And so I'll say generally what that means is making sure you're eating enough and that you're eating frequently. And both those things together make sure that your body's not releasing all of these counterproductive stress hormones, mainly cortisol. That you're sleeping enough. Sleep and lack of sleep is the most detrimental thing to our health. And I get it, it's tough. Sometimes I stress about not getting enough sleep, and that's not helping the problem. And so I've definitely gone through periods of more stressful times in my life where sleep is just hard to come by, but the better sleep hygiene we have, the healthier we're going to be. I tell people sleep is more important than a workout. Sleep is more important than eating healthy. Sleep is more important than anything that you do. Sleep is so important. So that's important. Stress management is very important. And so learning self-care. We live in a very fast-paced society that is obsessed with productivity. And so I always recommend that people really take a look at their stress levels. And then, of course, exercise. You don't want your exercise to be causing stress either. And so that's going to look different for every person. Everybody has a different threshold for how much exercise their body can handle. And different seasons require a different threshold of how much exercise your body can handle. If you're in a super high stress season, I'll give something, for example, like me studying for an exam and planning a wedding and traveling and all of that. Like, exercise actually might not be a productive stressor most days of the week. And so going out and pounding the pavement and running 5 miles is not healthy for my body. Maybe yoga is instead, or maybe a long walk, or maybe going to a bar class or something that's a little bit more chill. There's going to be seasons too, and some people in amenorrhea where no exercise is appropriate. It depends. Everybody is so unique. It's like all of these prongs coming together, and us kind of assessing all of them to be able to create a plan that's going to be perfect for you. But exercise, sleep, nutrition, and stress are all super, super, super important. So I hope that answers that question a little bit. One of the things that I will answer is the length of time it takes to get your cycle back totally depends on every person. Some clients it's taken over a year. Some clients it's taken 3 weeks. So I would say most clients is in between like the 3 to 6 month range, depending on their motivation. I say that just as observation on what we've had in a nutshell. That is not an end all be all of what happens. Okay, the last question I'll answer, because I don't want this to get super, super long, and we're already at 11.5 minutes, is do you believe there could be negative consequences of purposely not having a period? So, women are, a lot of them are trying not to conceive. Why have a period if you could not have one? If you take continuous birth control, those 7 placebo pills at the end of your pack, that is just placebo. Sometimes they have iron in them, sometimes they're just nothing. But that doesn't have any hormone in it. But you can start a new pack once you get to those white pills, and you will basically gloss right over your period. So having that period isn't, you're not actually having a true period when you're on birth control. The hormones that you were taking just drop because you stop taking them, which is what naturally happens in the body, and so therefore you bleed. But that's not a natural cycle, and so you can just continue to take birth control. It's called continuous birth control, and sometimes it's used in severe endometriosis. And so you can continue to take that and not have a period. Do I recommend women do I recommend that women actually induce like not having a period just for the heck of it and convenience? No. I don't recommend that because I think the womanly body is absolutely fascinating. I think like the way that women carry body fat is beautiful. I think that's fascinating. The way we can have children is amazing. We literally grow freaking humans. That's like crazy to me. And so I think that obviously if you're having really heavy periods or super bad PMS, that's usually an imbalance of estrogen and progesterone, and so that should be something that you go seek out advice from for your medical provider. But I don't think it's healthy just to like induce not having a period just because that's not the way our bodies were naturally supposed to work. And so I would certainly say that if you can avoid birth control at any cost, I would recommend that. I would always recommend not putting synthetic hormone into your body if you can. And so that would be my recommendation for that. I don't want to say too many statements on that because I can't really cater to the general public and talk about that because everyone's case might be different. Maybe you have a medical indication or something like that. But if you're just like, oh, I'll just continually take my birth control or I'll just whatever just to not have a period, I don't think that's healthy. It causes an imbalance. Now if you're, and also if women are not trying to conceive and they're just like fine with amenorrhea, they're like, oh great, I'm not having a period, I'm not trying to have a baby, super unhealthy. Super unhealthy. Your body, if you're not having a cycle, most likely is not producing enough estrogen. Your estrogen levels are low, and when your estrogen levels are low, that causes osteoporosis. And trust me, you do not want to get premature osteoporosis, and you don't want to get osteoporosis at all, let alone when you're, young. And so I would highly, highly, highly recommend not being okay with amenorrhea. I know it's something easy. I was definitely a little apathetic about it when I was 18, 19, 20. And it's something that's super not healthy at all. So, alright, that's all I have for you guys. Let me know, email me if you want me to clarify anything. I know I kind of just ramble sometimes, but I want it to feel like we're just sitting down to coffee and nothing too stuffy. So send me an email if you have further questions. I'm happy to answer them and make another video. All right, have a great day.